Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing by Electra and Casey. Spike Lee. Spike Lee is a director, actor, producer, and writer who often incorporates racial injustice, his political views, and the reality of urban crime and violence in America. Although Spike Lee was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1957, he grew up in Brooklyn, New York, which explains why he often includes social injustice and racial issues, as he was raised during a time where racial inequality was relevant and a constant news in headlines. Unfortunately, this is something we are familiar with today due to the recent events of racial profiling and police brutality, themes of which he includes in many of his work. Spike Lee is recognized as an auteur. This is why many people argue that he is very influential in the film industry because of his recognizable style and recurring themes and topics. He is one of the first African American directors to be recognized as an auteur, as he created his own style and techniques such as editing, sounds, and camera angles.
Do the Right Thing, 1989. Do the Right Thing is based in Brooklyn, New York, focusing on the lives of urban racially diverse area in a singular day. This creates climax and documents what life was like living in the 80s in a working class neighborhood, creating relatability as it can make the audience feel like it is in real time. It also builds tension and creates this slow, intense feel throughout. The movie is especially as the ending contrasts as it is fast paced and leads up to the climax. The film focuses on Spike Lee's different political views. Not only is he the director, but he's a protagonist in the film. The film centers on how social, class, race, and moral decisions that the characters make have a direct effect on the way people interact with each other. It starts with the film's characters waking up to the start of the day and climaxes with a neighborhood riot after police officers excessively restrain and kill a young black man named Radio Raheem for fighting an older Italian American restaurant owner named Sal in his pizzeria and then outside on the street. The film, although released in 1989, with its social commentary on the effect that race on the has on police brutality, is just as relevant today as when it was released 26 years ago, or as of now, 31 years ago.
Do the Right Thing, camera angles. Low angle shots. Spike Lee includes these shots to convey power and authority. Characters like Radio Raheem are often portrayed using these shots to show him as a powerful character, especially when he has the boombox, and the use of the sound with this shot also contributes as he is shown as a powerful black man, which is very relevant as it could be seen as intimidating. And he is the one who gets murdered in the end by the police, showing that no matter how much power or confidence you have, if you are black, you are vulnerable to police brutality. In these low angle shots as well, you can see most of the characters are usually showing a lot of emotion, and that's why the low angle shots are very important. Canted angles. Spike Lee uses this angle to convey chaos and disorientation. As Hollywood films do not usually include these angles are usually presented when chaos is about to happen, the calm before the storm. Spike Lee uses this to contribute to the comedic aspect as well. He also uses this angle to show skewed reality, giving the film the abstract dimension to a very real topic.
Zoom. Spike Lee uses Zoom to present tension. When a character is speaking on a serious topic, it usually zooms to show the importance of the scene. When the camera pans out, it shows the neighborhood also. Close up shots. These shots are usually used to show the emotions of the characters. An example of an important close up shot would be when Radio Raheem is murdered. Spike Lee uses this shot to show the audience the reality of police brutality, almost unfiltered. Breaking the fourth wall. This is one of the most significant camera angles or edits that Spike Lee uses, as it is a very unusual technique for films, especially when done properly. It is usually used in documentaries. This shot makes the scenes more personal as the characters talk to the audience through the camera. It can also be portrayed in a comical way. It's a very personal approach to filmmaking and engages the audience.
Are some examples of the shots that he uses. Here's the example of the low angle shot and canted angle shot. As you can see, is Radio Raheem is in the scene, and he is used a lot when these shots are presented. He's got the boombox in his hand, and he's always got the boombox in his hand throughout most of the scenes. In this scene, he is very angry and very passionate, so he's shown to have a lot of confidence. However, in the high angle shot example, it shows Sal. This is when he is being confronted by Radio Raheem and he knows he is about to get beat up by him. So it shows him as being very vulnerable and scared, and this is why the high angle shot shows him in his vulnerable state. Here is a clip and an example of Zoom and breaking the fourth wall. In this example, it showed breaking the fourth wall. um, it makes the scene much more personal and much more intense. It also brings a comedic value as it's meant to be a comedy, so therefore this is why they are talking to us, and it also engages the audience inside of the film as it's very direct, and also it makes what they're saying much more important and hold much more value as they are talking to the audience exactly. The racial slurs are things that we would be offended by, but as everybody is being racially against in those scenes, it makes it more intense.
Sound. Fight the Power Public Enemy soundtrack. The music used in the opening of the film, namely Fight the Power Public Enemy, was created specifically for the use of the film. Fight the Power, the subject of power in this sense, can be perceived as either the power of the police and state that systematically oppress black people. Alternatively, it can be in reference to the working class system, since the city of Brooklyn was a working class area. A recurring theme, a recurring sound in the film is that of the radio. It functions as a measure for time, being the opening of the first scene, to which is at the beginning of the day, and continues narration throughout. The Italian restaurant owner destroys the radio, symbolically destroying the voice of the black man. Before the physicality of the radio, Raheem is destroyed when the police kills him.
Police brutality in the 80s versus police brutality now. The movie ends in a scene of chaos and distraught, whereby the much loved character of Radio Raheem is brutally murdered by a police officer, called to break up a fight between a character of the Italian restaurant owner and the Radio Raheem. In that scene, the police officer is called in order to stop the fight. However, it is the black man, being Radio Raheem, who is actually dragged away and restrained, while the Italian man is left to do whatever. In the year of 2020, this scene is inseparable from the real brutal murder of George Floyd this summer. Both Radio Raheem and George Floyd were murdered by restricting their neck and stopping their breathing. The recording of both scenes seem uncanny similar. The crowd surrounding Radio Raheem chanting, "You can't kill us all," is very much reflective of the chants heard in the protest this summer, following the racial murder of George Floyd. Both the character, Radio Raheem, and George Floyd are considered powerful and much loved men in their hometowns. The event of the summer has emphasized the relevance of the film Do the Right Thing to a modern day audience. Lee has continued to advocate his passion for racial injustice this year, following the murder of George Floyd, and even went as far to release a short film named Three Brothers, which began with the opening line, "Will history stop repeating itself?" To which combines the scenes of the arrest of Floyd and Gardner with that of the fictional Raheem. Although that this film was made over 30 years ago, the themes that are shown then are also themes that we can see nowadays in our reality. Here is an example of a fictional scene in this film and something that happened only a few months ago. George Floyd being restricted by his neck, not being able to breathe and murdered, and it shows Raheem here in the movie being killed the same way, basically. And it's showing that there has actually been no difference from 30 years ago to now. And this is why directors like Spike Lee make these films in order to show what happens in real life. Although that scene was very hard to watch because it almost mimics of what the things we've seen for the past few years, especially with the George Floyd video, it really highlights what is going on today. And it's almost crazy how Spike Lee showed this 30 years ago and he's predicted the things that are happening now in 2020. In that scene, you can see every single race and every single person in that community, although they were Chinese, Italian, black, white, they all kind of came together against the police. For once in the movie, they were actually came together as one to defend what was going on. And it kind of shows how a community can come together when they see what's going wrong, showing what's happening nowadays with the riots. A lot of people coming together and fighting for what's right.
It also ultimately links to the music playing throughout, saying "Fight the Power," um, as it becomes relevant at the end that as opposed to all of these communities that are pushed to the side, all of these different races that are being prejudiced against, as opposed to fighting against each other, they should be coming together to fight the power of the police force and the system.